And are there no pressures that can be applied? There's no speedy clock trial, right? There's nothing that's ensuring that the system moves in an efficient manner so these things can be resolved.
Well, you're an attorney. If an attorney on some side working for the city, 18B, co-defendants counsel, whatever, isn't doing their job, who are you going to report him to?
Yeah, the bar. Yeah.
Hey, you're not good.
Right, exactly. Nobody.
We don't do that.
We don't have time for that.
That's snitching.
That's snitching. Yeah.
No snitching in this house.
Snitching over here.
That's what it is. Remember, the hard thing is, it's like we talked about this before, but you don't get to choose your attorney when they get assigned to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find your attorney, especially, and I feel like I had a colleague who interned for a family court judge, and he told me this thing. He goes honestly, when you take this job, you start to realize that half these guys don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think every element of law is what I'm starting to figure out. There's a strong, healthy majority of people that are just there making money and really don't know what they're doing or aren't advocating properly and haven't thought these things out, haven't put the time in and the effort. And
I mean, I'm telling you, a big part of creating Attorneys Are Swag was just being a public defender, and like you said, like we're not gonna whatever it's a code, like maybe it's like where the cops have the blue line, lawyers have their own line, where it's like we're not gonna report fucking.
We're not a gang, though.
You know what I mean? We're not going to report malpractice that we just see in the courtrooms.
Well, that's the thing. Most of the time, you don't have evidence of malpractice. You just
go
have
through
something
it
you
yourself.
disagree with.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not going to
Yeah.
make our reputation. We're not going to connect ourselves to that very complicated process.
Yeah.
And two, like you said, it's happening spur of the moment. But the amount of times I see wild shit.
Wild shit.
We
saw it in court together the other day.
Wild shit.
Oh my God.
Wild shit.
Do you remember that?
Oh my God, that shit was
Wild.
fucking crazy.
We were in court together the other day, and there was another public defender sitting in between us, and this person, newly assigned to a case, signed counsel plan,
Private
gets
or
on the case, 18B.
18B.
First time appearing on the case. Yeah. He gets up there, the case is on for that day. The prosecution is not ready, and the client can be out. Right?
It's on for 180, right? It's on for 180. No.
He waives it?
No. It gets worse. It's on for 180. It's on for 188.
Release.
180 release.
Yeah.
This guy got the case.
You want to explain what 188 release is?
So 188 release is the date that if you have a felony, for them to keep you incarcerated if bail is set, they would have to provide an indictment to the court.
If you're not indicted, you have to be
just
released.
evidence of at least one felony crime that's been presented to the grand jury and voted and found to be valid.
Yeah, indictment on that charge, right?
Well,
It doesn't
we don't have to have a
indictment.
finding
Just
yet
has to be
that they have
positive grand jury
presented.
action. Indictment is when you're done with everything and you write it up and you get it signed by the foreman.
Okay.
Come on, I'm bugging. On the 180 date, don't they have to have the indictment?
No, they just have to have proof of positive grand jury action.
Okay, so they've already presented the case to
Any
the grand jury
felony.
and
Doesn't
they're
even have to be a
deliberating.
top felony on any felony.
And at what point do we have to? How long can they hold them without the indictment?
They can only hold them as long as that panel exists or until they've indicted.
Indicted or not, if they
At a
haven't
certain
indicted,
point, they're
then
going to have
boom.
to. Because they can't withdraw the case from the grand jury panel, and the grand jury panel is usually only there for 30 days. So they're going to have to get it done before the end of the grand jury panel.
So effectively, at this date and time, the client was about to be released.
The client was ready to go.
Yeah.
Attorney's first time on, and the attorney says, and I couldn't believe it when I heard this.
I swear to God, it was crazy.
In fairness to the prosecution,
Objection.
I will waive until
What?
next week.
What?
He said his client's sitting there in handcuffs.
In handcuffs and shackles.
And you could tell that this guy had some sort of developmental issue. He didn't react. Like he clearly did not understand that he had just been, his attorney just agreed
To incarcerate him.
for the benefit of the prosecution.
Which
That's why people feel
crazy.
they're on the same team.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
It's not
bad
legal
apple spoils
not,
the bunch.
It's not defenders. This is a
plain-
assigned counsel
look,
plan.
we had this
That's
conversation,
crazy.
right? Like
That's
plain
crazy.
devil's advocate.
That's crazy.
And giving the guy
That's crazy.
every benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's a really bad case.
No.
No, I know. So look, I'm still manning the argument. I'm not saying. I was baffled when I was hearing this shit.
We were really upset.
Somebody should have yelled objection.
I was like, I've never heard. look, you waive for a lot of reasons. We can probably do a whole episode.
There are
on-
strategic ways to play the game,
Yeah.
and that's why we can never say there's malpractice or not, because we don't have all the
But
facts. There are things at play that we may not know about, so
correct.
nobody wants
But
to
I've
Sunday
never
morning quarterback.
heard on the record someone say, I am doing this because it's either fair or not fair for the prosecution.
And I guarantee you, he was a former
fucking
prosecutor.
insane.
But the thing that bothered me was that the judge asked him, "Do you want to second call this so you can speak to the prosecution?" And he said, "No."
Yeah.
He made the waiver on. He got the file, entered his notice of appearance, spoke to nobody, and waived the.
Is that really? Because I know that
That's
like
crazy.
he actually got entered in that moment, and
That's crazy.
Because I didn't see those.
So he was assigned the case 4 days prior,
Uh-huh.
and a different attorney made the appearance, and that attorney was actually in the courtroom. He had a 2-second conference with that attorney because he didn't know what that attorney had done because he hadn't spoken to him about what happened. And
He didn't look at the
then he
court
waived the
file.
time.
You didn't look at the.
Yeah, bro. Like that's. I won't lie. That was one of the. But going back to what I was saying is like practicing as a public defender is like a wild thing about once you are admitted to the bar is
You're
that
done.
bar is not that high. That bar, like the funny thing is like,
And you can't get out of it unless you're like stealing money from your clients or some criminal
people
like
people shit on public defenders, but like the institutional quality controls within the legal aid society, Bronx defense, all these defenders organizations is so much higher than what potentially your dumb fuck of a 18B or a private lawyer could be doing to you. Now,
100%.
It's your, like you said, it's like you get to pick the guy, and I think that's probably like the most important thing. If you're gonna be paying money for a private attorney, you better pick the right private
I actually
attorney.
think that you shouldn't be practicing criminal law privately if you have not been formally a public defender or a prosecutor. I think the stakes are so high, and the training and the understanding of the workings of the system, because we're talking about liberty being at stake. If that person isn't very well versed with this area of practice, you shouldn't hire them, and they shouldn't even be able to fucking handle one of those cases. But that's
It should be like a Twitter verification. Have you actually done this job? Yes or no?
You have to understand, getting a public defender in one of the 5 boroughs, which is some of the most prestigious people from incredible institutions, all like CUNY School of Law, which I'm an alum as well.
Salute.
And it really is. You really do get the cream of the crop. Like my first class at legal aid, there were 14 attorneys, and like that, and 7 of us were straight from law school, right? I mean, like it is. Whereas if you go to say name a town in fucking wherever upstate New York, and you're gonna get it's a different level.
New York?
Yeah,
Sounds like upstate
that's
New York.
Rensselaer. Rensselaer